Wholeness, welcome. This is Josh Dippold of Inner Skilled, and today I have Murphy Monroe with me. Murphy, what's happening today?
Oh, Josh, nice to be with you this morning. Thanks so much for having me. And this is a great space to be in.
Cool. Murphy's another fellow Midwesterner, so it's not yeah. As far as these things online go, I don't get too many of them, so it's pretty cool. So, who is Murphy Monroe, and what kind of work does he do?
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, I guess I would start with that I'm a father and a husband. I live in Evanston, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Murphy Monroe is autistic. My primary occupation is running a really, really special organization in Chicago called that's a circus school and a theater company. So I run a circus school by day. But Murphy Monroe really is someone whose life has been profoundly changed because of my floating practice and my interest in flotation therapy. Um, and I have found myself in a way that I'm not so sure I was on a path to do without having um, learned about floating wellness, and the power of being alone.
Well, you know what? I'm curious to learn how you found out about flotation, uh, and then if there's any, excuse me, one second,
Please.
if there's any relevant backstory leading up to that, you're welcome to share too. My guess is that you didn't find out about it by watching the movie Altered States. Are you familiar with this movie?
I am familiar with the
Yeah,
movie. Yeah,
but my guess is you discovered that afterwards, if I had to guess.
that's right for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, that's
And
right.
I'll just give a disclosure. I think I've done it once or twice in Chicago years ago. A friend of mine who's a psychologist, a college friend, he told me about this and said I had to
Yeah.
do it. And yeah, I was not meditating at that point either. And anyway, it doesn't sound like I had as profound as experience as you. It was very relaxing and yeah, calming and soothing. But I wanted you to you're the guest here. Jump in and let me know how you came across that.
Well, so Where You Floated is one of the original and longest standing float centers in Chicago. And I know this only because years ago there was only one float center in Chicago, and it's the same place I floated for the first time in the early 90s. Um, and yeah, for me as well, the first time it wasn't anything profound. But what it was dark and quiet. And as an autistic kid growing up, my my favorite places were dark and quiet places, right? So like I would go into the bedroom closet, I would close the door, and then I would get behind all of the clothes, right? So I was like dark, quiet, still, no input or as little input as possible. Sometimes I would sneak in between the box spring and the mattress, just to be in like a dark, still kind of that kind of space. And so when I went in the float tank for the first time, I made that association in my mind that like, oh wow, this is just like it's anonymous, it's private, it's like a world away from distractions or other people. Um, so that was the first time I floated, and I didn't actually float again for a long time after that. I was a teenager more or less. But about, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago, a float center opened in my hometown. And so I saw it and I just immediately went. And that experience for me became profound pretty quickly. I had already started to introduce meditation into my life. And so this, a lot of people call floating a shortcut to meditation, or training wheels for meditation, if you will, just because it creates circumstances upon which your um, oftentimes more likely to find a space of peace and a space of a place you're more likely to center yourself, I guess is the best way to say it. Um, yeah, so I just quickly started acclimating to it and spending more and more time there. If floating was originally invented as a pathway to alternative consciousness, um, but then over the last, few decades, it's become much more of a wellness practice, a spa type activity with a whole range of folks who are doing it, many seeking forms of alternative consciousness or a space where liminal dreaming is accessible, um, others seeking a just sacred, quiet space that is just theirs, where they can have their most deep connection with themselves or most deep connection possible with what other type of consciousness they may be trying to reach, or whatever type of, who knows, but many see it as a powerful portal. Um, yeah. Would it be helpful to describe floating for a minute? Because I'm afraid part of your audience may be wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely like that. And I'm thinking I watched a TV show that's about alternative science a few years ago. I won't name it by name, but it was really interesting to see that. And before I forget, maybe we can come back to this or maybe not. Dark Retreat, hearing what you said about that. So maybe that might be something to chat about a little bit later. But yes, please jump in here, jump into the tank, so to speak,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
tell just, yeah, for the absolute newcomer to this, has no idea what you're talking about. You might as
yeah,
well
right.
just start there, I guess. Yeah. And
Totally.
then any profound experiences too, beyond
Yeah,
just the regular experience, I think it would
yeah,
be interesting to hear.
yeah, absolutely. So let's imagine ourselves lying in 10 inches of water. Um, but this 10 inches of water, by the way, this is just the most crystal clear, pristine, beautiful water you can imagine, specially curated just for this experience. And this water, we've put so much magnesium sulfate or Epsom salt in that the water is just completely buoyant, like the Dead Sea. One would just, a human of any size would just lie right on top and effortlessly be held up by the surface of that water. Then we heat the water. And what we do is we heat that water precisely to your skin temperature, somewhere around maybe 94.5, 95 degrees. And then then we have you lie in that water. Your ears are just below the surface of the water. You're just lying there effortlessly. It's really gravity free, so there's no weight or pressure on your body in any place. And then the next thing we do is we heat the air above your body to 95 degrees as well. So now the air, the body, and your water are one enveloped atmosphere where everything is the exact same blended temperature. And now, Josh, we're going to turn the lights off. And so it's completely dark. And in this situation, you really can't see anything. It's true dark, not just, dark, but true dark. Can't see anything. You can't smell anything. And because you can't see the water, and because the water and the air are the same temperature, your brain loses track of the water. And the water simply goes away. And so now you can't feel anything. And you are in a complete situation with zero external stimuli, allowing your brain to start to turn itself off in ways it doesn't even during your deepest sleep. No longer having to account for gravity, no longer having to account for where that edge of the bed is or anything else. Your brain is just simply turned off. and allowing a different kind of relaxation, a different access to different kinds of brain states. And so the magnesium sulfate on its own is a tremendously powerful and healing thing. And so, athletes float for, to reduce inflammation and all sorts of things. But the most important thing that happens in there is nothing. Is just being in a situation where there is absolutely nothing there. Your left brain is there, but it's, a powerful place to confront that left brain or to get into a better conversation about and with that left brain. And so it creates a super powerful space. I know you asked, Josh, about sort of profound things, and there's a lot of it, both that I've experienced myself, and I've had a chance to be with other people who've experienced them. So, profound things for me involved I mentioned earlier that I'm autistic, which means I have poor interoception. Interoception is how our body talks to us. It tells us we're hot or cold or have to go to the bathroom. You can feel your heart racing. Well, I don't have much of that. I have very little connection between my head and my body until the float tank. And within that float tank is where I really started to contend with the rest of my body, to really listen to my heartbeat, to become conscious of my diaphragm, start to stretch muscles that I hadn't really thought of or contemplated until I was a fully grown man. The other profound thing for me is that my meditation changed in the float tank. Something switched for me. The more I have spent time in that float tank, the more profoundly I believe in a shared consciousness amongst all of us. And the float tank itself gave me the notion to start listening for that consciousness, to believing in it, to knowing it's there, to knowing that connection is there, and to listen for it. And, really prior to the float tank, my meditation was still a daily practice, still brought me tremendous calm, peace. But in the float tank, it took on a whole new element for me, where I started just really actively listening the whole time that I'm in there. And that active listening, for me, is what started building pathways of connection. And active listening for extended periods of time in a state of mindfulness, I've discovered is, at least for me, a bit of a gateway.
Well, this is all beautiful. It brought up so many things that I thought of that I wanted to learn more about too. And maybe you can give your definition of consciousness. That's a huge one because I've heard many people define it in many different ways. But what I'm thinking now is because my fiance and I we're fairly energetically sensitive. I'd say that like for me, like strong fluorescent lighting is not that helpful. Yeah, loud, chaotic environments and a lot of things going on. It's just they like penetrate into the nervous system, and you can
Yes.
just kind of feel this tensing of the body. So just having this extra energetic sensitivity, and being fairly empathic, they have to come up with different strategies that most people are either numb to this or don't, not as sensitive, let's just say, to external stimuli like this. And so well, that brings me to wondering about these things, about where all this comes from, at least externally. The mind plays a huge role in the interpretation of it, and how we view it and how we respond to it, what we do. But as far as the body goes, I was curious about like embodiment practices like yoga or qigong, massage too. I noticed that when I was really connected with my body is when I'm doing massage or cranial sacral. That's someone I really trust and can relax with. When I used to drink alcohol years ago, unfortunately, that was like, it did bring, I could feel my body, but then, it has the drawback. So, that's not an option anymore. So that was like, yeah, since
Yeah.
2013. Few more, just a couple more quick things, and don't have to
Yeah.
remember all this or address all of these.
Sure.
I was wondering about this, where they test sound things, where it's completely soundproof too. I forget what they call these, chambers or whatever. And
Yeah.
then I was thinking about if you've ever had experience with that, which I haven't. The other thing is a Faraday cage, because we're bombarded by so much electronic
Yeah.
transmissions these
Yes.
days. I was wondering if you ever had a chance, because I want to do that too. I would love to meditate in one of those to know about as well. And then dark retreat, I think some people have really can freak out on that, and some people have really super profound experiences too. So that's plenty on the plate or on the table here for you to go through and address with these.
Yeah, well, I mean, you started with the biggest question, I guess, which is my definition of consciousness. And um, yeah, so consciousness is everything, and it's all around us, and we share it. It's all knowledge. It's everything that's ever been. It holds in it some sort of combined energy and space that holds everything. And we all access that consciousness via our brains. I would use God more or less as my word for that consciousness. Um, and I believe we share it. And I believe that the capacity for humankind to um, connect with each other and communicate with each other, the potential for it is way beyond words and way beyond touch. And that thinking of consciousness in a more open way, um, and um, leading with love are the pathways to get there. So that's, I guess, what I would say is my uninformed personal opinion about consciousness. Super interested in dark retreats. I have not been on a dark retreat and would like to. It's on my bucket list. I've had the privilege of talking to several people who've been on dark retreats. One of them who was freaked out, as you mentioned, and it just was not the right space for. But a couple of others who had like deep experiences. One of them who suggested he was, hallucinating maybe only 6, 8 hours in, and really experiencing, just deep radical experiences, and only, maybe within the first 24 hours of it. And so I believe it. The idea that, well, first of all, we're not used to dark. When we close our, turn off our lights at the end of the night and go to bed, almost none of us are going to bed in a completely dark room. We just are not used to dark. And so a true dark retreat is I would imagine if you have if you can, um, if you can step into it mentally in the right way, then I would think it would really have the power to open you up to a lot of different pathways and a lot of different kinds of thinking. I was on a tour of a business the other day, unrelated to any of this, but they had a version of a Faraday cage there because they happened to test electronic products. And they were telling me all about, the Q&A testing of electronics and the Faraday cage. And the only thing in my mind was, how could I get them to let me spend a couple of hours in there? Because I absolutely think that I love the idea of floating being combined with something like a Faraday cage. I do believe that we are inundated by, if these things are in the air, we know it. We know that all of these transmissions and signals and everything else move through the air. And the idea that they aren't impacting us, that they aren't playing a role in our overall experience is just, that can't be so. And so I love the idea of figuring out a way to combine that type of additional safety, that type of additional protection during meditation makes you know so much sense to me. And I know you had a couple of other topics in there, but I might have
Oh yeah,
I might have lost them.
that's okay. The float tanks themselves, can't they get pretty much all dark too?
Float
Can we
tanks are
get?
completely dark.
They
Yes,
are completely dark. Okay, it's only when like it's coming back online that they have like lights that come on to show you where
yeah,
the edges are, I think, or something like
that's
that.
right.
I see.
So
And,
float tanks have lights in them, and so if one wants to have a light on while floating, they can.
I see.
It's not
Exactly.
meant to be scary, but the idea of floating is true dark.
Yeah.
And so either the float tank itself has true dark, or the room the float tank is in
I see.
is true dark.
The other
Um,
one were the embodiment practices like
yes,
massage, yoga, qigong,
yes.
different things to connect mind and body. The breath does a fairly good job of it, but there are some challenge. There's extra challenges for some of us. Yeah.
My my mind body work has come, and it's not touch based, although sometimes is has been through Tai Chi. Um, Largely for me because of um, I have to put a lot of thought into my body as I'm doing it. One, because we're really trying to move lightly, and that takes a lot of body awareness to do so. Um, but also, it's movement based in a way that really makes me need to coordinate myself intentionally. And then the idea of mixing that with the goal of being mindless about it um, is this like wonderful little um, um, conundrum.
Yes, kind of a paradox too, almost.
Yes.
It's mindful
Um,
movement, but also with completely turning everything
yeah.
off and just
Yeah.
flow state.
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is kind of a paradox.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Now, do you have a float tank at home now? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and
funny you ask.
yes,
Um, I during COVID, most of the float tank centers closed, like everywhere else, and I actually sourced my own float tank. And so I bought it from a firefighter in Cleveland, whose Harley was broken, and he needed money to fix his Harley, and he was making a sacrifice. Float tanks aren't really made for homes; they're very expensive, and so it's an impractical thing. But I was desperate, and so I did it. But that float tank lasted me only a few years before I had mechanical problems with it. And I started floating at a local float center here in Chicago, which about 7 months ago now I purchased. Um,
oh, you
the owner,
did.
yeah,
Congratulations. Yeah.
yes, yeah, the owner was having a hard time with it. It's not an easy business because no one's heard of it. Um, but to me, the idea of creating a space for other people to heal in, like it just excited me so much that I could be the one to like help make sure the space is the right kind of space, and that there's an open space for healing. I just felt like um, it's just a really easy path to giving an awesome gift to the community, and so I just kind of jumped on a limb and did that. It's not my occupation at all. It's just a side project, but it allows me to really um, bring floating to people in a whole different way. It's like just a joy.
Well, yeah, I could imagine. And maybe when I come through, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have time when I come back through Chicago. But if I do, maybe I'll look it up.
Please
That would be
do.
really
Yeah,
awesome. Yes.
would love to have you.
And with that in mind, I don't know if I mentioned. I might as well do this publicly in a way that would you give any advice to people who were looking to start a float center or buy a float center
Yeah.
or even just add one at a spa without
Yes.
taking away your giving you more competition,
Yeah.
stay out of the Chicago area. That's Murphy's territory, so
No,
anywhere else is okay. No.
please come. The more the merrier.
Okay.
Well, I guess the first piece of advice I would do would just be to float a whole lot and make sure it's something you are truly, truly passionate about. It would be much more affordable and lucrative to open a massage spa, probably, or red light therapy than floating. It's expensive and technical and specific. And so one has to be really, really passionate about it. So I would just make sure to start from that perspective. But then from there, I would just say that there's a few hundred float centers across the United States, and their float owners are really well connected with each other and are one of the most beautiful communities I've been a part of people who are really just trying to support each other and lift each other up. And it's an easy community to find on one of the major social media sites. Also through podcasts. There's a couple of very popular float center owner podcasts that are easy to find. And I think those are good places. And also me, I'm really easy to find on the internet, and I'm very happy if people want to reach out to me from my website, or you can just Google me, and it's easy to find me, and I'm very happy to point people in the right direction, talk to people. Always happy to do that.
What would you recommend for there's way more spas, obviously. For a spa, just adding like a single float tank. Would you recommend it? Is there a
Yes,
certain class of tanks you would recommend? Like tips and
absolutely.
tricks?
Yeah, yeah. So adding floating onto wellness businesses is a great idea to have it as a separate modality. It's a modality that it mixes well with massage, and mixes well with other things too. And so absolutely. And it's much more affordable to create one float room rather than several. There's a lot of commercial float tanks available, and there are a wide range. People can pay from $10,000 to $100,000 for a float tank, depending on what they're trying to achieve. Um, and so there's a great market for used float tanks, and that's where I would go first. Um, and I also would put a lot of thought into making sure that you have the right space for it. Floating needs to be quiet. Floating needs to be dark. You need to have a separate shower in that space. And so making sure that architecturally it makes sense for your business. But if you have a thriving business, if you have a thriving wellness business, adding floating on as a modality would definitely bring new people into the door to be interested in your other modalities, but also would no doubt be of great interest because a lot of the people you're already serving are like-minded people who, if they were introduced to what is arguably the greatest form of relaxation possible, they would likely, be interested. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look this up in Copenhagen now because Denmark is known for hygge, which is translated as cozy culture.
Yes, yes,
And it's all
yes,
about relaxation and at least well-being in a certain flavor. It's
yes.
one way to put it. Yeah. So,
You'll find floating in Denmark for sure.
oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Hey, I couldn't help but think at the beginning, circus. So,
yeah.
really? So how? Tell me more about that, and how does that fit into your or maybe it doesn't the floating and
Yeah,
just I guess autism too.
yeah, yeah.
Because it seems I'll just
Thanks,
leave it
Josh.
very general like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up wanting to be a clown. It's just what I had in my mind growing up, and I worked in higher ed for a long time and as an administrator. But there's an amazing circus school in Chicago. We teach over 1,000 students circus a year, both kids learning to, do fun things and adults who are professionals with, big circus dreams in their head. And we also work to produce theater, to help theater companies all across the country make their theatrical productions far more physical and have people fly and introduce circus elements to what they do. And the way it connects, and I love it. It's just so much fun. I feel so lucky that that's what I get to do. I show up to work, Monday morning when I go to work, there's going to be 75 little campers there on stilts in a park, like having fun. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is my job. The way it connects to wellness for me is one, it's a great juxtaposition to the chaos of circus. And for me, it just provides this really nice balance and retreat. But the thing that's a surprise to me is, serious circus performers are athletes and like athletes of the highest order. And so their need for muscle recovery, their need for relaxation, their need for ways to fight fatigue are really great. And so we found all sorts of crossovers with circus folks who find time in the tank is really good for their body, and also helpful. Um, yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Have you been on like tours too, like doing the touring circus thing from town to town, or are you just strictly doing the school thing?
So we have performers that work with us and work for us who are touring all the time, and we send out acts to tour. I don't tour though. I'm in charge of the place, and so I'm making sure we have insurance and that the board is informed and all of the most important logistics. We're creating the kind of culture we need to for everybody to feel good. Um, but yeah, circus is still alive and well. There's still a lot of traveling, big top circuses out there, and they're all looking for acts, that's for sure.
Went to the big estate in Sarasota, Florida. That's a really interesting compound there. Yeah, I had no idea how opulent that all became, and yeah, the
It's
unique
this
taste involved too. Yeah.
Sarasota is the center of circus in America.
Ah, how about that?
Yeah, so
Wow.
that's where Ringling Brothers, all those years, that's where they wintered. So in the winter, all of their animals, all of their trains, all of their people would all go to Sarasota and camp out and train. And over time, the Circus Hall of Fame is there. It's a whole thing, super cool.
And I'm sure you've been there.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes. Well, cool. Well, Murphy, this has been a real joy and a pleasure, and now I'm interested again in the floating too. And I remember it was a really cool experience. I felt really kind of privileged and honored to do this. What was it? It must have been in the early 2000s,
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I didn't know anybody else that had done it, So it was like this kind of badge of honor almost that I got to do it way
Cool.
back then.
Yeah.
So it's high time I revisit. So I really appreciate kind of this refresher course and connecting about this topic. Yeah, with it as far as meditation supports go, it's one that's I think gets often overlooked a lot of times too. So I appreciate this bringing this back on my radar. So thank you so much.
This was great fun, Josh. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can find your work, and
Sure.
then any other kind of message you want to take people out on today.
Um, well, absolutely. I guess the first thing I could say is I have a website. It's my name, and I can be found easily on there. You can learn more about me. You can reach out to me. One of the things that a whole nother thing, my passion of mine is disability advocacy, particularly helping people think about neurodivergence in the workplace or in just public spaces, how we can create workplaces, businesses that attract neurodivergent employees, serve neurodivergent employees and customers as well. And something I do a fair amount of speaking and consulting on, and people can learn more about that on my website as well. And I guess if I was gonna leave with something, I would just leave with the idea that the truth we all know in our heads is the truth. And that, there are, I think of young people everywhere or others who in their minds feel like they're living in a world that is sort of fighting against them, and they have ideas of what's right or ideas of who they are that the world says no to. And that I just believe that inside of us, we know. And I think it's important to find enough light to be able to hold on to it, and to believe it regardless of what a whole lot of uninformed and unkind people in our world have to say these days.
Well, that's beautifully put, Murphy. And for those listening and don't have access to reading somehow, it's spelled MURPHYMONROE, and that's .com. And thank you so much today. May all beings come to know thyself, trust thyself, and may all beings everywhere realize awakening and be free. Bye now.